This is going to be the final villain of Stranger Things 5, and no, it is not Vecna. I personally think Vecna is going to be defeated in the second last episode of the show, revealing the bigger bad for the final episode for the whole team to go up against. And this is who it's going to be. So earlier I did actually come across this theory about like a final big bad for the final episode of Stranger Things 5. And it was very interesting. I thought that I would share it with you guys as well. Now personally, in my opinion, I think the final villain is still going to be the Mind Flayer. But this is how they could actually still squeeze this theory in to the final episode of the show. So we know that in Stranger Things, they're pretty much playing D&D but in real life. And every villain ends up being a big bad of that specific season. So, for example, in various seasons, for season 1, we had the Demogorgon first mentioned, only for the Demogorgon to be the final villain of that season. And then for season 2, we did have the Mind Flayer being referenced. And then obviously in season 2, there was the Mind Flayer. And then in season 4, during Eddie's campaign, we did have Vecna being revealed as the villain of that D&D campaign. And Vecna ended up being the villain of that season. And like I said, I do not think Vecna is going to be the final villain of the show. And there's still one D&D villain that they've mentioned beforehand in Stranger Things, but they did not do a payoff with it in terms of it actually being a villain in one of the seasons, and that is the Thessal Hydra. Now, the Thessal Hydra was actually mentioned at the end of season 1, and they could still somehow incorporate it into the final episode of the show. Yes, it's too late to completely introduce a brand new villain. I don't think that they're gonna do that, but they could kind of work their way around it and do it like this. So the Thessal Hydra is this big beast looking like monster with like 6 different heads, and it's like a snaky looking monster. It's absolutely terrifying. No doubt would it be absolutely terrifying. And I think that, like I said, the Mind Flayer is still going to be the final villain of that show. But somehow maybe they could incorporate the Thessal Hydra with this, where the Mind Flayer's final form is going to be the Thessal Hydra. I think that would be really, really cool. Yes, although we did see Vecna shape the Mind Flayer into that spider-like being, they could somehow do something where something happens and the Mind Flayer just grows to evolve, becomes even more powerful, and takes up the form of the Thessal Hydra. I could see that working out. We are yet to get the scene of Will just looking up, looking absolutely terrified, and he's screaming out of his lungs saying, "Run!" And he's looking up, he's clearly looking at something. I think he is looking at the Mind Flayer, and maybe it's having a different form, or maybe it still does have its spider-like form. But let me know what you guys think about this.